that they are changing my voice. Now, for those of you who have been watching my videos, you see that I'm right about the plane crash. Now, all of a sudden, there's another famous plane crash that occurs where a plane crashes into a building in Philadelphia. How could that be? We rarely hear about plane crashes in the news, and there's one back-to-back, right? One crashes into a Black Hawk helicopter, and one crashes into a building. Now, I can't get too much into detail, but they have brought up buildings to me leading up to this in a way that has to do with death. Okay. And of course, I talked about the connection between 9/11 and this case, right? The war on terror, and ISIS and Al Qaeda and Hamas and the wordplay. Ham A's, Ham Alphas, ISIS, right? Black Egypt, right? Horus in the Osirian mysteries is the son of Osiris and Isis. And Al Qaeda. There's connections there as well, right? Al becomes Lay. Okay, Ka-Day, U-Ka-Day, U-Ka-E-D. And recently, going into a place I often go to, and, I like going there. It's hard to tell how much the staff know what's going on, but they do things in a way that causes me to have some kind of cognitive damage. And quite often they say bye. You can tell that they're talking about the LGBT reproductive cycle, which ultimately causes the LGBT spirit to be reduced and destroyed and cursed more. Because when you go against the most righteous person that ever lived, it's cursing your spirits more, and obviously it's not going to help what they're trying to do, right? Everyone according to their deeds, their motives, right? The Lord weighs the motives, what have you. And of course, it's obviously whites, Jews, and LGBT people at the highest level of the New World Order, or the lowest, depending on, how you describe it, right? And they're seeking to benefit from the sabotage of the black man. And I put the three main groups of people who have the most natural appeal, as I've done before, as first the mulatto, okay, from the black patriarchal line, black African patriarchal line, but a certain type, the Royal African Falcon martial art. Think about the spectrum, the pinnacle of the spectrum. Now, from what I gathered, after that it gets a bit more complex, but basically you get sort of dark-skinned Japanese, the ones who are the most romantically appealing at the top of their spectrum, and you get some kind of islander, right? Filipino, what have you. Now, I don't know everything about islanders, but so I'm going off of what I've seen. My experiences is something to that effect. So because that whites, Jews, and LGBT people don't have the most natural appeal, and the people who govern them, in terms of the highest part of their spectrum, they're jealous, okay, that they've sabotaged the way I look and the way I sound, and they're playing it as like a complex kind of thing, expressing their complex in a quote-unquote artistic shadow psychology, shadow self sort of way. They're not actually trying to seem ideal, because that's impossible. First of all, when you look at the main people who are sabotaging other whites and Jews and LGBT people in their group, they're not very desirable looking, right? They're not very romantic, right? They're blood money rich people. They're nerdy, okay, and often they try to get tans, and pale is associated with leprosy and being sickly. In terms of the human spectrum, right? People started in Africa, so there's a kind of natural and collective conscious-based understanding that they could never be ideal. And again, I'm not racist. It's just what it is. This is just me telling you what it is. I'm not going to have any kids. I'm not a black supremacist. I'm not a mulatto supremacist. I'm not so much concerned with who people think is more attractive or handsome than who after I'm gone. As far as I'm concerned, then none of them are. As far as I'm concerned, they're all rebels, and none of them deserve an attractive female after my flesh dies. But these are the facts here, and this connects to the plane crash. If you think of things in terms of like a fashion context, a contest, or a beauty contest, or the Game of Thrones, and you think of a bunch of racist homosexuals in social clubs throwing a fit with other racists, who might think of themselves as heterosexual, but they've yoked themselves to that kind of LGBT-like Masonic style, Masonic spirit and way about them, it's a lot easier to understand what's going on. And as far as I can tell, they don't actually think that they can outmaneuver other people. What they're doing is they're just throwing a fit, a bitch fit, and they're forcing people to have sex with them in certain ways. They're using various forms of deception and coercion, etc. And keep in mind, they took it there by sabotaging me. They took it there by doing all these horrible things to people, starving 9 million people to death a year, sabotaging people. So it was more than fair for me to highlight this. And when people are causing me cognitive damage, have cognitive damage, and they say bye, and they know that I'm going to interpret that as the wordplay for bisexual under the guise of saying bye, but also the wordplay of saying, hey, we know that you're getting screened out. And the bisexual is going to be the spirit that rules here, guys. It's fucking retarded. I don't respect it at all. And as I see the LGBT community's failure to take responsibility for what they're doing, the failure for factions to break off and stand with me, hey, how could I respect them? Okay, before I forget, also one of the people I interviewed in Santa Cruz, they said that they're going to have to jet. Of all the things they could say, I don't think I've ever heard someone say that way in my entire life in person to me. They said they were going to have to jet. And I was like, that's an interesting choice of words. And of course, in the news and the annotations, it described it as the jet, and they messed up the annotations or something, or maybe they brought up the Jetsons, and it said the Jetson. Okay? And we see that wordplay refers to the Santa Cruz event. Because remember, when the tip of the wharf there was broken off, I was talking about the waves and people being punished and things like that while I was recording the wharf, okay, as I was making a speech in Westcliff. I forgot, it was like 2 or 3 weeks before that. So this overkills that also wasn't a coincidence, right? You see that pattern of events. What are the odds that female there says jet, and then a jet goes down? Okay, because that interview was what? Is the beginning of January or something? Okay, what are the odds? And what are the odds that wharf, when I'm recording and I'm talking about the waves and the floods and the water that's being used by God in Psalms to punish people, that the tip of that wharf, and I'm talking about the top martial arts, the word point is in top scrambled. It's safe to say that yes, this stuff is centered around me, and the New World Order is laughing at people for not being smart enough to obey God through me, because it's clear, right? Are you better off living for a year more, we'll say, in a dungeon, or for 6 months more rallying to the top martial arts ever? So you better off wasting your life and living a longer life, or feeling like there's a better chance you're going to live a longer life? Or you better off rallying and actually being alive and obeying God through me? I mean, this isn't rocket science. It isn't brain surgery here. It isn't being the top martial artist ever possible here to understand this. And so when you see that other people, not only they're not the top martial artists, but they're not even smart enough to rally and obey God through me, no matter how many of them become aware of what's going on here. It's clear that I should be in charge. It's so clear. What's more clear than the fact that I should be in charge? And the fact that people are dumb if they don't obey God through me. Clear cut. So I almost forgot. It's a medical jet. Medical, right? My father's a brain surgeon. My mother's a doctor. My father's not only a brain surgeon, but a top doctor who worked his way up from being penniless all the way up to being a brain surgeon. And so we see the Black Hawk down, the other plane crash, the plane that crashed into the Black Hawk. Okay, the Falcon, the hawk, the symbol of wisdom. I go on and on about this. I'm a black person. Also is connected to Africa with Somalia, though my dad is from Nigeria, not Somalia, where the movie is called Black Hawk Down. And also, for those of you who don't understand the wordplay, those of you who doubt that life is unfair, that it's how it's structured, ask yourself why the word house is a play on words for ho-use, and home, ho-me, and medic, me dick, and medical, me dick lay, and meal, me lay, right, without the Y, right, same with medical. Food, fo-do, feed, feed-dee, grub, G-rub, like rubbing somebody sexually, and we go on and on and on about these connections. You think it's a coincidence when there's talking about healthcare, food, and shelter? There's wordplay there that reflects the extreme unfairness of the system. And whether it starts with white people or another people, the system has been structured for hundreds, if not thousands of years, okay, to be extremely unfair and to use basic, essential services to control sexual behavior. That wordplay is conclusive. That pattern is too conclusive. So it is with the pattern we see in this case in regards to me, right? Marshall is marital scrambled. Christ is the bridegroom, right? Emergency, emerge, and see. Urgency, urgency. Responsibility. Marshall is marital scrambled. Christ is the bridegroom. I'm the only one with the top martial arts challenge to everybody in a way that's universally fair. That is the pinnacle of martial arts, right? Mind, body, soul, spirit, spar it, spirit, spur, and spar and par, up to par, what have you. Everyone else shrank. Everyone who thinks they might be good didn't have the heart to challenge everybody in a way that's uncontrolled, and certainly not on behalf of God. And I've triumphed, and the wordplay points to me as well, right? Kiro, Obi, black belt. I've gone over this many times. Obi means King, Heart, Hut, Essence, Center, Temple, Core. In Igbo, which is Obi spelled backwards, which is the name of my father's tribe, and I'm from the royal family of Dr. Martin Luther King's tribe. Again, doctor, which goes back to medical jet. And again, that female said that she needs to jet. Okay? Whether or not you know it, there's a bunch of occult, white Jew, LGBT, and token minorities and gang members who are more up to date on what's going on than other gang members who know that I'm the Son of God. Whether or not you believe that, whether or not you believe in God, the logic points to the fact that I'm the Son of God. And when we look at academia, one cannot be a serious academic without understanding that even to the agnostic, the most logical assumption is what the person with faith knows for sure is that God exists. And so does justice, and so does the fact, the moral absolute, that it's absolutely immoral to pretend that the top martial artist ever possible isn't magically the Son of God. He is. Especially with the evidence I presented in this video alone. Just the evidence I presented in this video alone, no one has a viable counterargument. Compare it to the different activities, to the different types of people, you'll see that I'm right.